Portland, Oregon, March 15, 1996. The afternoon rain drummed against the windows of Secondhand Treasures, a cluttered thrift store on Southeast Division Street in Portland, Oregon. Among the maze of donated furniture and forgotten belongings, 34-year-old accountant Michael Harrison browsed through a cardboard box filled with old VHS tapes. The store owner had marked them at 50 cents each, and Michael needed a blank tape to record a financial planning seminar scheduled to air that evening. Michael had moved to Portland 6 months earlier, accepting a position with a mid-sized accounting firm downtown. The transition from his previous life in Sacramento had been smooth, and he had grown fond of his modest 2-bedroom house in the Sellwood neighborhood. The 1950s craftsman-style home offered the quiet suburban life he craved after years of apartment living. As he sorted through the collection of tapes, most appeared to be commercially recorded movies and television shows. However, one tape caught his attention, a standard VHS cassette with no label, appearing completely blank. The clerk at the counter, an elderly woman with thick glasses, confirmed that it should work fine for recording purposes. Michael paid his 50 cents and headed home, eager to set up his recording for the evening program. Back at his house on Southeast 13th Avenue, Michael inserted the tape into his VCR to verify it was blank before programming the recording. Instead of the expected static or blue screen, his television displayed something that made his blood run cold. The screen showed the interior of a house, specifically his house. The camera angle captured his living room from an elevated position, showing his brown leather couch, the oak coffee table he had inherited from his grandmother, and the distinctive brick fireplace that had drawn him to purchase the property. Initially, Michael wondered if perhaps the previous homeowner had made some kind of recording, though that seemed unlikely given the tape's apparent age and condition. However, as he continued watching, details became increasingly disturbing. The footage showed not just the layout of his home, but recent additions he had made since moving in. His new television set, which he had purchased just 2 weeks earlier, sat prominently in the frame. Personal items he recognized from his current living situation were clearly visible throughout the recording. The camera work appeared deliberate and methodical, not the casual filming of a homeowner documenting their property. Whoever operated the camera had taken time to capture specific angles of each room, lingering on certain areas as if conducting surveillance. The quality suggested the use of professional equipment rather than a standard home video camera. Most unsettling was the steady, calculated movement of the camera, suggesting the operator was very familiar with the layout of the house. As Michael fast-forwarded through the tape, he discovered approximately 2 hours of footage documenting various rooms throughout his home. The recording included his kitchen, bathroom, bedroom, and even the basement utility room. Some segments appeared to be filmed during daylight hours, while others were shot in artificial lighting conditions. The timestamps, when visible, indicated the recordings had been made within the past 3 months, well after Michael had taken possession of the property. The realization that someone had been inside his home without his knowledge created a profound sense of violation and fear. Michael had been meticulous about home security, always locking doors and windows, and he had never given keys to anyone except his sister, who lived across the country. The house had been empty for several months before his purchase, according to his real estate agent, making the timeline of the recordings even more puzzling. Michael examined his home more carefully, searching for signs of forced entry or hidden cameras. His inspection revealed several small holes in the walls that he had previously attributed to picture hanging by previous occupants. However, upon closer examination, some of these holes appeared to be positioned at angles that would provide optimal viewing positions for surveillance equipment. The discovery sent chills down his spine as he realized the extent of the intrusion into his private life. The quality and comprehensiveness of the surveillance suggested this was not a random break-in or casual trespassing incident. Someone had invested significant time and effort into documenting his living space, which implied either a specific interest in Michael himself or a broader pattern of activity targeting multiple residences in the area. The professional nature of the equipment and recording techniques suggested the involvement of someone with technical expertise and access to specialized surveillance equipment. Michael spent the evening securing his home as thoroughly as possible, checking and rechecking locks and positioning furniture to block potential access points. Sleep proved elusive, as every small noise triggered concerns about potential intruders. The knowledge that someone had violated his personal space so completely created a persistent feeling of vulnerability that permeated every corner of his supposedly safe haven. The following morning, Michael contacted the Portland Police Bureau to report the incident. The desk sergeant initially seemed skeptical about the unusual nature of the complaint, but agreed to send an officer to take a formal report. Detective James Mitchell, a 20-year veteran of the force specializing in property crimes and burglary investigations, arrived at Michael's home within 2 hours of the initial call. Detective Mitchell reviewed the tape with professional interest, immediately recognizing that this case fell outside the parameters of typical residential crime. The sophisticated nature of the surveillance and the implications of someone having extended access to the residence suggested potential connections to organized criminal activity or stalking behavior. The detective documented the evidence carefully and began developing a preliminary investigation strategy. The discovery of the surveillance tape raised immediate questions about how such detailed footage of Michael's home had ended up in a local thrift store. Detective Mitchell recognized that tracing the origin of the tape could provide crucial leads in identifying the perpetrator and understanding the scope of the surveillance operation. The investigation would require careful coordination between multiple law enforcement agencies and technical specialists capable of analyzing the surveillance equipment and techniques involved. As Detective Mitchell prepared to leave Michael's home, he made a chilling observation that would reshape the entire investigation. Hidden in the corner of the basement, partially concealed behind an old water heater, he discovered a small piece of professional surveillance equipment that had been overlooked during the initial sweep. The device appeared to be recently installed and was still operational, suggesting that whoever had conducted the original surveillance might still be monitoring the property. The investigation was about to reveal something far more extensive and dangerous than anyone had initially imagined. Portland, Oregon, March 16, 1996. Detective James Mitchell arrived at the Portland Police Bureau early the following morning, carrying the surveillance equipment discovered in Michael Harrison's basement, along with the mysterious VHS tape. The small device, no larger than a cigarette pack, represented sophisticated surveillance technology, typically available only to law enforcement agencies or well-funded private security operations. The discovery had transformed what initially appeared to be an isolated incident into a case with potentially far-reaching implications. The Technical Analysis Unit confirmed Mitchell's suspicions about the equipment's advanced nature. The device contained a miniaturized transmitter capable of broadcasting audio and limited visual data to a remote receiver, suggesting the existence of a comprehensive surveillance network rather than a simple recording operation. The unit's power supply indicated it had been operational for several months, aligning with the timeline of Michael's occupancy of the residence. Mitchell's investigation into the tape's origin led him to Secondhand Treasures, where the elderly clerk, Dorothy Williams, provided crucial information about the tape's source. According to store records, the tape had been donated 3 days earlier by a woman named Sarah Coleman, who claimed to be disposing of her deceased ex-husband's belongings. Sarah had provided an address in the nearby Hawthorne district and mentioned that her former spouse had been involved in electronics repair work. The detective's visit to Sarah Coleman's apartment revealed a woman in her early 40s, visibly distressed about her recent divorce and her ex-husband's sudden death 6 months earlier. Sarah explained that Robert Chen, her former husband, had died of an apparent heart attack at age 38, leaving behind boxes of electronic equipment and hundreds of unmarked VHS tapes. She had been gradually disposing of his possessions through various thrift stores and garage sales, overwhelmed by the volume of technical equipment she didn't understand. Sarah's description of Robert Chen painted a picture of an increasingly reclusive individual who had become obsessed with electronics and surveillance technology during the final years of their marriage. She recalled that he worked as a freelance television and VCR repair technician, often working late into the night on projects he refused to discuss. Their relationship had deteriorated as Robert became more secretive about his work and began spending entire days away from home without explanation. The investigation into Robert Chen's background revealed several concerning patterns. Official records showed that Chen had lived in the same house that Michael Harrison now occupied. having sold the property to a real estate investment company just 1 month before his death. The timing suggested that Chen had maintained access to the residence even after the sale, potentially using his knowledge of the property's layout to install surveillance equipment before Michael's arrival. Chen's work history indicated expertise in electronic surveillance systems, having completed specialized training in security technology during his military service in the early 1980s. Former colleagues described him as technically brilliant, but increasingly paranoid about privacy and government surveillance. Several clients had complained about his unusual interest in their home security systems and his tendency to ask detailed questions about their daily routines and schedules. Detective Mitchell's examination of Chen's former workshop, located in the garage of Sarah Coleman's apartment complex, revealed an extensive collection of surveillance equipment and recording devices. The workspace contained dozens of unmarked VHS tapes, multiple video recording systems, and sophisticated electronic monitoring equipment. Many of the tapes were labeled with cryptic codes and dates, suggesting a systematic approach to surveillance operations. The analysis of Chen's equipment revealed a disturbing pattern of surveillance activities extending far beyond Michael Harrison's residence. Technical specialists discovered recording equipment calibrated for multiple different locations, suggesting Chen had been conducting surveillance operations on various properties throughout the Portland metropolitan area. The scope of the operation implied months or possibly years of systematic privacy violations affecting numerous unsuspecting residents. Further investigation revealed that Chen had maintained detailed records of his surveillance activities, including floor plans, resident schedules, and behavioral patterns. The documentation suggested that his operations were not random, but carefully planned targeting of specific properties and individuals. The criteria for target selection remained unclear, but preliminary analysis indicated a preference for single-family homes in middle-class neighborhoods with predictable daily routines. Detective Mitchell discovered that Chen had been working with at least 2 other individuals in his surveillance operations. Phone records and financial documents revealed regular contact with David Torres, a local electrician, and Jennifer Walsh, a real estate agent with access to multiple properties throughout the city. The 3 individuals had formed a network that combined Chen's technical expertise, Torres's access to electrical systems, and Walsh's knowledge of real estate markets and property access. The investigation into David Torres revealed a history of minor criminal charges related to trespassing and unauthorized entry into residential properties. Torres had been employed by various electrical contractors throughout the Portland area, providing him with legitimate access to numerous homes and businesses. His work history showed a pattern of short-term employment relationships and frequent job changes, suggesting potential conflicts with employers or clients. Jennifer Walsh's background indicated a successful real estate career spanning over a decade, with access to hundreds of properties through her work with a prominent Portland real estate agency. However, closer examination revealed several complaints from clients about unauthorized visits to their properties and inappropriate questions about their personal lives and security arrangements. The complaints had been dismissed as minor professional disputes, but they now appeared to form a pattern of surveillance-related activities. The financial records of all 3 individuals showed irregular cash transactions and payments that didn't correspond to their legitimate employment income. Bank deposits and withdrawals suggested a systematic operation involving the exchange of money for services related to their surveillance activities. The financial trail indicated that their operation had been generating significant revenue, implying the existence of clients or customers for their surveillance services. As Detective Mitchell compiled evidence of the surveillance network's scope and operations, he realized that the discovery of the VHS tape in Michael Harrison's possession represented only a small fraction of a much larger criminal enterprise. The evidence suggested that Chen, Torres, and Walsh had been operating a sophisticated surveillance business targeting dozens of families throughout the Portland area, potentially for years without detection. The investigation took a dramatic turn when Mitchell discovered that Robert Chen's death might not have been the natural cardiac event initially reported by medical authorities. A review of the death certificate and autopsy records revealed inconsistencies in the medical examiner's findings and the circumstances surrounding Chen's death. The detectives' growing suspicions about the nature of Chen's demise would soon uncover evidence that the surveillance network had been involved in activities far more sinister than simple privacy violations, and that Chen's death might have been the result of a deadly conflict within the criminal organization itself. Portland, Oregon, March 18, 1996. The forensic examination of Robert Chen's former residence revealed the true scope of his surveillance operations. Detective Mitchell, accompanied by a specialized technical team from the Oregon State Police, discovered an elaborate network of hidden cameras and recording equipment installed throughout the property. The system had been carefully concealed within the walls, attic spaces, and basement areas, creating a comprehensive monitoring capability that covered every room of the house. The technical sophistication of Chen's installation exceeded anything the investigators had previously encountered in residential surveillance cases. The equipment included fiber optic cameras no larger than pinheads, wireless transmission devices, and a central recording system capable of monitoring multiple locations simultaneously. The discovery suggested that Chen possessed advanced knowledge of surveillance technology typically reserved for law enforcement or intelligence agencies. Hidden within the basement of Chen's former home, investigators uncovered a control room that had been meticulously designed to coordinate surveillance operations across multiple properties. Banks of television monitors, recording equipment, and communication devices filled the space, creating what essentially amounted to a private intelligence operation. Detailed maps of the surrounding neighborhoods covered the walls, with specific properties marked and annotated with cryptic symbols and codes. The documentation found in Chen's control room revealed the systematic nature of his surveillance network. File cabinets contained hundreds of folders, each dedicated to a specific property or family under observation. The files included detailed floor plans, photographs of residents, daily schedule analyses, and behavioral pattern assessments. The level of detail suggested that Chen had been conducting surveillance operations for several years, accumulating comprehensive intelligence on dozens of unsuspecting families. Analysis of the surveillance recordings revealed that Chen's operations extended far beyond simple voyeurism or casual privacy violations. The recordings showed evidence of systematic intelligence gathering focused on identifying valuable items within homes, security system vulnerabilities, and periods when properties would be unoccupied. The information appeared to be compiled for purposes that extended beyond mere observation, suggesting potential connections to burglary operations or other criminal activities. The investigation team discovered that Chen had established surveillance operations on at least 15 different properties throughout the Portland metropolitan area. Each installation required significant technical expertise and extended access to the targeted properties, indicating collaboration with individuals who could provide legitimate entry opportunities. The scope of the network suggested a well-organized criminal enterprise with multiple participants and clearly defined operational procedures. Further examination of Chen's records revealed a sophisticated client system for his surveillance services. Financial documents indicated regular payments from unidentified sources, with amounts ranging from hundreds to thousands of dollars per month. The payment schedules corresponded with specific surveillance operations, suggesting that Chen was providing intelligence services to clients with various motivations for monitoring particular properties or individuals. The discovery of encrypted communication equipment in Chen's control room indicated that his surveillance network was connected to external organizations or individuals. Technical specialists began the process of attempting to decode the communication records, hoping to identify Chen's clients and understand the broader scope of the criminal enterprise. The encryption methods used suggested a level of operational security typically associated with organized crime or intelligence operations. Detective Mitchell's investigation into David Torres revealed his crucial role in facilitating Chen's surveillance installations. Torres had used his position as an electrician to gain access to targeted properties, often under the pretense of routine electrical work or safety inspections. His employment records showed a pattern of jobs at properties that subsequently appeared in Chen's surveillance files, establishing a clear connection between his electrical work and the installation of surveillance equipment. The investigation into Jennifer Walsh's involvement revealed her role in identifying suitable targets for surveillance operations. As a real estate agent, Walsh had access to detailed information about property ownership, resident demographics, and home security features. Her client database included many of the properties found in Chen's surveillance files, suggesting she had been systematically identifying vulnerable targets for the surveillance network. Walsh's real estate activities showed a pattern of unauthorized property visits and extended access to client homes under various pretenses. Several property owners had complained about her unusual interest in their personal schedules and security arrangements, but these concerns had been dismissed as overzealous sales tactics. The complaints now appeared to be evidence of intelligence-gathering activities supporting Chen's surveillance operations. The financial analysis of the surveillance network revealed a complex web of payments and revenue sharing among Chen, Torres, and Walsh. Bank records showed regular cash deposits corresponding to surveillance installations and ongoing monitoring services. The amounts suggested that the network was generating substantial revenue, indicating the existence of multiple clients willing to pay significant sums for surveillance intelligence. As the investigation progressed, Detective Mitchell discovered evidence suggesting that Chen's surveillance network was connected to a broader criminal organization operating throughout the Pacific Northwest. Communication records and financial transactions indicated contact with similar operations in Seattle, Sacramento, and other major cities. The discovery suggested that Chen's Portland network was part of a regional or national surveillance enterprise with coordinated operations across multiple states. The investigation took a disturbing turn when analysts discovered that some of Chen's surveillance targets included families with young children and vulnerable individuals. The targeting criteria appeared to focus on households with specific characteristics that made them attractive to criminal enterprises involved in activities beyond simple burglary or theft. The implications of this targeting pattern raised serious concerns about the ultimate purposes of the surveillance network. Technical analysis of the surveillance equipment revealed that Chen had been experimenting with advanced monitoring technologies, including audio recording devices and motion detection systems. Some installations included experimental equipment not available through commercial channels, suggesting connections to manufacturers or suppliers of restricted surveillance technology. The sophistication of the equipment indicated that Chen's network had access to resources typically available only to law enforcement or intelligence agencies. The discovery of a hidden safe in Chen's control room provided crucial evidence about the network's operations and objectives. The safe contained additional surveillance recordings, financial records, and what appeared to be blackmail materials related to some of the surveillance targets. The contents suggested that the network's activities had evolved beyond simple intelligence gathering to include extortion and coercion of selected victims. As Detective Mitchell compiled evidence of the surveillance network's extensive operations, he realized that Robert Chen's death had occurred at a critical moment in the investigation. The timing of Chen's demise, just as the network appeared to be expanding its operations and experimenting with new criminal activities, suggested that his death might have been related to conflicts within the organization or attempts to silence him before he could expose the broader enterprise. The investigation was about to uncover evidence that would reveal the true nature of Chen's death and expose a criminal conspiracy that extended far beyond simple surveillance operations, involving activities that would shock even experienced law enforcement professionals and forever change how authorities approached privacy crimes and residential security. Portland, Oregon, March 22, 1996. The medical examiner's office received an urgent request from Detective Mitchell to re-examine Robert Chen's autopsy results in light of the surveillance network investigation. Dr. Patricia Williams, the chief medical examiner, agreed to conduct a comprehensive review of the original findings and the physical evidence collected during Chen's initial examination. The review would prove to reveal inconsistencies that had been overlooked during the original investigation. The re-examination of Chen's body, which had been preserved in the county morgue pending final disposition, revealed trace amounts of digitalis in his system. The cardiac glycoside, commonly found in foxglove plants, can cause fatal heart arrhythmias when administered in sufficient quantities. The original autopsy had attributed Chen's death to natural cardiac arrest, but the discovery of digitalis suggested the possibility of poisoning designed to mimic a heart attack. Further toxicological analysis revealed that the digitalis levels in Chen's system were consistent with deliberate administration rather than accidental exposure or therapeutic use. The timing of the poisoning appeared to coincide with Chen's final surveillance recordings, suggesting that his death had been carefully planned to occur during a specific period. The medical evidence transformed the investigation from a surveillance case into a potential homicide inquiry. Detective Mitchell's investigation into the circumstances surrounding Chen's death revealed several suspicious elements that had been overlooked by the original investigators. Chen had been found dead in his car outside a downtown Portland electronics store, initially suggesting he had suffered a heart attack while running errands. However, the re-examination revealed that Chen had no business relationship with the electronics store and no legitimate reason to be in that location. Surveillance footage from the electronics store parking lot showed Chen arriving at the location in the company of another individual, who left the scene before Chen's body was discovered. The video quality was insufficient to identify the companion, but the timing suggested that Chen had been meeting with someone shortly before his death. The meeting location and circumstances indicated that Chen's death had been carefully orchestrated to appear accidental. The investigation into Chen's final days revealed that he had been expressing concerns about the direction of the surveillance network and his partner's activities. According to Sarah Coleman, Chen had become increasingly paranoid about his safety and had mentioned wanting to end his involvement in what he described as activities that had gotten out of control. His concerns appeared to be related to pressure from his partners to expand the network's operations into areas he considered too dangerous. Financial records from the weeks preceding Chen's death showed unusual activity in his personal accounts, including large cash withdrawals and attempts to liquidate assets. The financial activity suggested that Chen might have been preparing to flee or attempting to distance himself from the surveillance network. The timing of these transactions coincided with his expressions of concern about the network's activities and his desire to withdraw from the operation. Detective Mitchell's investigation into David Torres revealed that he had been pressuring Chen to expand the surveillance network into more lucrative criminal activities. Torres had connections to organized crime figures in the Portland area and had been advocating for the use of surveillance intelligence to support burglary operations and identity theft schemes. Chen's resistance to these proposals had created tension within the network and threatened the partnership's future expansion plans. The investigation into Jennifer Walsh revealed her role in identifying high-value targets for expanded criminal operations. Walsh had been using her real estate connections to identify wealthy property owners and businesses that could be targeted for more sophisticated criminal schemes. Her activities included gathering intelligence on bank accounts, investment portfolios, and valuable collections that could be targeted for theft or fraud operations. Technical analysis of Chen's communication equipment revealed encrypted messages indicating conflicts with his partners about the network's future direction. The messages suggested that Chen had been threatened by Torres and Walsh when he attempted to limit the network's activities to simple surveillance operations. The threats appeared to escalate in the weeks before Chen's death, indicating that the conflicts had reached a critical point. The investigation revealed that Torres and Walsh had been working with external criminal organizations to monetize the surveillance intelligence gathered by Chen's network. The partnerships involved selling information about security vulnerabilities, residence schedules, and valuable assets to criminal groups specializing in burglary, identity theft, and fraud operations. The revenue potential of these activities far exceeded the income from simple surveillance services. Detective Mitchell discovered that Chen had been secretly documenting evidence of his partner's criminal activities, apparently as insurance against potential retaliation or as preparation for cooperating with law enforcement. Hidden storage devices contained recordings of conversations with Torres and Walsh discussing plans for criminal operations and threats made against Chen when he resisted their proposals. The evidence suggested that Chen had been planning to expose the network's activities. The investigation revealed that the surveillance network had been connected to a regional criminal organization operating throughout the Pacific Northwest. The organization specialized in residential burglary, identity theft, and fraud operations that relied on detailed intelligence about target properties and residents. Chen's surveillance network had been providing crucial intelligence that enabled the organization to conduct highly successful criminal operations with minimal risk of detection. Financial analysis revealed that the criminal organization had been paying substantial amounts for surveillance intelligence, creating pressure on Chen's network to expand operations and provide more comprehensive information about potential targets. The revenue-sharing arrangements gave Torres and Walsh strong financial incentives to push for expanded criminal activities, while Chen's technical expertise made him essential to the network's operations. The investigation uncovered evidence that Torres and Walsh had been planning to eliminate Chen and take control of his surveillance technology and client relationships. Communications intercepted by technical specialists revealed discussions about methods for removing Chen from the operation while maintaining access to his surveillance installations and technical expertise. The planning appeared to culminate in the decision to poison Chen using digitalis. As Detective Mitchell compiled evidence of the conspiracy to murder Chen, he realized that the surveillance network had been operating as part of a much larger criminal enterprise with connections throughout the region. The discovery of Chen's murder had exposed a sophisticated criminal organization that had been operating undetected for years, using surveillance technology to support a wide range of criminal activities affecting hundreds of victims. The investigation was about to reveal the full scope of the criminal organization's operations and the extent of their criminal activities, exposing a conspiracy that would lead to one of the largest criminal investigations in Oregon's history and forever change how law enforcement approached technology-enabled crime and organized criminal enterprises operating across state boundaries. Portland, Oregon, March 28, 1996. The breakthrough in the investigation came when FBI agents executed simultaneous search warrants on the homes and businesses of David Torres and Jennifer Walsh. The federal involvement had been triggered by evidence of interstate criminal activity and the sophisticated nature of the surveillance network that crossed state boundaries. What agents discovered during these searches would expose the true magnitude of the criminal enterprise and reveal connections that reached far beyond the Pacific Northwest. In Torres's residence, investigators uncovered a sophisticated communications center containing encrypted radio equipment, multiple cellular phones, and computer systems linked to criminal networks operating throughout the western United States. The equipment suggested that Torres had been coordinating with criminal organizations in California, Washington, Nevada, and Arizona, indicating that the Portland surveillance network was part of a much larger interstate operation. The search of Torres's workshop revealed evidence of his role in manufacturing and distributing surveillance equipment to criminal organizations across multiple states. Industrial-grade electronics assembly equipment, component inventories, and shipping records indicated that Torres had been producing surveillance devices for distribution to criminal networks throughout the region. The operation represented a significant source of revenue and explained the sophisticated nature of the equipment found in Chen's installations. Financial records seized from Torres's residence revealed payments from criminal organizations in 7 different states, with transaction amounts indicating a multimillion-dollar operation spanning several years. The financial evidence showed that Torres had been receiving substantial payments for surveillance equipment, installation services, and ongoing technical support for criminal networks across the western United States. The scope of the operation far exceeded anything investigators had initially imagined. The search of Jennifer Walsh's real estate office revealed a comprehensive database of potential surveillance targets throughout the Pacific Northwest. Walsh had been systematically identifying properties and residents suitable for surveillance operations, using her access to real estate records, property assessments, and personal information to compile detailed target profiles. The database contained information on over 300 properties across Oregon, Washington, and Northern California. Walsh's records revealed that she had been receiving substantial payments from criminal organizations for intelligence-gathering services. Her real estate position provided legitimate access to homes and personal information, making her an invaluable asset for criminal networks seeking to identify vulnerable targets. The payments for her services were disguised as real estate commissions and consulting fees, creating a sophisticated money laundering operation. The investigation revealed that Walsh had been coordinating with corrupt law enforcement officials to obtain information about ongoing investigations and potential threats to the criminal network. Communication records showed regular contact with individuals identified as police officers and sheriff's deputies in multiple jurisdictions. The corruption extended to court personnel and prosecutors' offices, creating a network of protection for the criminal organization's activities. Technical analysis of the seized equipment revealed that the surveillance network had been collecting information far beyond simple property intelligence. The network had been gathering personal financial information, social security numbers, and identity documents that were being sold to criminal organizations specializing in identity theft and financial fraud. The scope of the privacy violations affected thousands of victims across multiple states. The investigation uncovered evidence that Chen had discovered the full extent of his partner's criminal activities and had been planning to cooperate with federal authorities. Hidden storage devices contained detailed documentation of the criminal network's operations, including financial records, communication logs, and evidence of corruption within law enforcement agencies. Chen had been systematically gathering evidence for what appeared to be a comprehensive exposure of the entire operation. Federal investigators discovered that Chen had made contact with the FBI's Portland field office several weeks before his death, expressing interest in providing information about a large-scale criminal enterprise. Chen had scheduled a meeting with federal agents for the week following his death, suggesting that his murder had been timed to prevent his cooperation with authorities. The timing indicated that Torres and Walsh had been aware of Chen's intentions and had acted to prevent his testimony. The investigation revealed that the criminal network had been involved in a sophisticated identity theft operation that had victimized thousands of individuals across the western United States. Surveillance intelligence gathered by Chen's network had been used to target individuals with good credit ratings and substantial assets, enabling criminals to assume their identities and access their financial accounts. The operation had generated millions of dollars in fraudulent transactions over several years. Analysis of seized financial records revealed that the criminal organization had been laundering money through a network of legitimate businesses, including real estate transactions, electronic sales, and security consulting services. The money laundering operation involved dozens of businesses across multiple states, creating a complex web of financial transactions that had successfully concealed the criminal proceeds for years. The investigation uncovered evidence that the surveillance network had been providing intelligence to support human trafficking operations along the West Coast. Surveillance had been used to identify vulnerable individuals and monitor law enforcement activities that might threaten trafficking routes. The connection to human trafficking elevated the investigation to the highest priority levels within federal law enforcement agencies. Federal agents discovered that Torres had been working with organized crime families based in California and Nevada, providing surveillance services and technical expertise for their criminal operations. The partnerships had enabled the criminal organizations to expand their activities into new territories and develop more sophisticated operational capabilities. The connections extended the investigation into established organized crime investigations in multiple states. The investigation revealed that the criminal network had been planning a significant expansion of their operations, including the recruitment of additional surveillance technicians and the establishment of networks in major cities throughout the United States. Plans seized during the searches indicated targets in Chicago, Denver, Phoenix, and Atlanta, suggesting that the Portland network was intended to serve as a model for national expansion. As federal agents compiled evidence of the vast criminal enterprise, they realized that Chen's murder had been motivated by far more than simple partnership disputes. Chen's death had been necessary to protect a multimillion-dollar criminal operation that involved organized crime, government corruption, and criminal activities affecting thousands of victims across multiple states. The investigation had uncovered one of the most sophisticated criminal networks in modern law enforcement history. The evidence gathered from the searches of Torres and Walsh's properties provided federal prosecutors with the foundation for a comprehensive RICO case that would target the entire criminal organization and its associates across multiple states. The investigation was about to culminate in the largest coordinated law enforcement operation in the Pacific Northwest's history, with arrests planned simultaneously across 7 states to prevent the escape of key figures in the criminal enterprise. Portland, Oregon, April 15, 1996. Operation Silent Watch, the coordinated federal law enforcement action targeting the surveillance-based criminal network, commenced at precisely 6 o'clock in the morning across 7 western states. FBI agents, working in cooperation with local law enforcement agencies, executed 43 simultaneous arrest warrants targeting individuals connected to the criminal enterprise. The operation represented the culmination of the most extensive investigation in Oregon State Police history and involved over 200 law enforcement officers. David Torres was arrested at his Portland residence without incident, though agents discovered that he had been preparing to flee the country. Packed suitcases, false identification documents, and airline tickets to Mexico were found in his bedroom, indicating that Torres had been aware of the closing investigation and was attempting to escape prosecution. His arrest prevented what would have been a successful flight from justice and ensured his availability for trial. Jennifer Walsh was apprehended at Portland International Airport while attempting to board a flight to Seattle, carrying false identification and substantial amounts of cash. Her arrest occurred just hours before her scheduled connection to an international flight that would have taken her beyond the reach of United States law enforcement. The timing of her attempted escape suggested coordination with Torres and awareness of the impending arrests. The arrests extended far beyond the Portland area, encompassing criminal associates throughout California, Washington, Nevada, Arizona, Colorado, and Utah. Among those arrested were corrupt law enforcement officials who had been providing protection for the criminal network, including 2 sheriff's deputies, a police detective, and a federal court clerk who had been providing advance warning of investigations and warrants. The evidence seized during Operation Silent Watch included over 10,000 hours of surveillance recordings, financial records documenting millions of dollars in criminal transactions, and communication equipment linking the network to organized crime families across the western United States. The scope of the evidence collection required a specialized federal facility to process and catalog the materials for prosecution purposes. Federal prosecutors announced charges against 37 individuals under the Racketeer-Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act, citing the criminal enterprise's involvement in surveillance crimes, identity theft, money laundering, corruption of public officials, and conspiracy to commit murder. The RICO charges carried potential sentences ranging from 20 years to life imprisonment, ensuring that successful prosecutions would effectively dismantle the criminal organization. The investigation revealed that the criminal network had victimized over 4,000 individuals across the western United States through various surveillance-related crimes. Victims included families whose homes had been burglarized using surveillance intelligence, individuals whose identities had been stolen through surveillance operations, and businesses that had been defrauded using information gathered through illegal monitoring activities. Analysis of the complete financial records revealed that the criminal enterprise had generated over $15 million in illegal revenue over a 5-year period. The money had been laundered through dozens of legitimate businesses and invested in real estate, securities, and other assets that were subject to federal forfeiture proceedings. The asset recovery efforts would eventually return millions of dollars to victims of the criminal network. The trial of David Torres began 8 months after his arrest, featuring testimony from federal agents, technical experts, and cooperating witnesses who provided detailed accounts of the criminal network's operations. Torres was convicted on all charges, including first-degree murder in the death of Robert Chen, and sentenced to life imprisonment without possibility of parole. His conviction established important legal precedents for prosecuting technology-enabled organized crime. Jennifer Walsh accepted a plea agreement in exchange for her cooperation in prosecuting other members of the criminal network. Her testimony provided crucial evidence about the network's operations and led to additional convictions of associates across multiple states. Walsh was sentenced to 18 years in federal prison and required to pay substantial restitution to victims of the surveillance crimes. The corrupted law enforcement officials received sentences ranging from 10 to 25 years in federal prison, with additional penalties including loss of law enforcement credentials and pension benefits. Their prosecutions sent a strong message about the federal government's commitment to addressing corruption within law enforcement agencies and maintaining the integrity of the justice system. Michael Harrison, whose discovery of the surveillance tape had initiated the investigation, received recognition from federal law enforcement agencies for his role in exposing the criminal network. Harrison relocated to another state under a witness protection program due to concerns about potential retaliation from associates of the criminal organization who had not been apprehended during the initial arrests. The investigation led to significant changes in federal and state laws regarding surveillance crimes, privacy violations, and technology-enabled criminal enterprises. New legislation strengthened penalties for illegal surveillance activities and provided enhanced protections for privacy rights in residential settings. The legal changes established framework for prosecuting similar criminal enterprises in the digital age. The case resulted in the establishment of specialized federal task forces dedicated to investigating technology-enabled organized crime and surveillance-related criminal activities. These task forces have been responsible for identifying and prosecuting numerous similar criminal enterprises throughout the United States, preventing thousands of potential victims from experiencing privacy violations and related crimes. The Portland Surveillance Network case became a landmark investigation that demonstrated the potential for sophisticated criminal enterprises to exploit technology for illegal purposes while operating undetected within legitimate business and social structures. The case highlighted the importance of citizen vigilance and law enforcement cooperation in identifying and prosecuting complex criminal organizations. Robert Chen, despite his involvement in illegal surveillance activities, was ultimately recognized as a victim of the criminal enterprise he had helped to create. His decision to document evidence of the network's expansion into more serious criminal activities and his intention to cooperate with federal authorities had cost him his life, but provided the foundation for the successful prosecution of the entire organization. The investigation's success demonstrated that even the most sophisticated criminal enterprises could be identified, investigated, and prosecuted when law enforcement agencies worked cooperatively across jurisdictional boundaries. The case established important precedents for federal prosecution of technology-enabled organized crime and provided a model for future investigations of similar criminal networks. The resolution of the Portland Surveillance Network case brought justice to thousands of victims while dismantling one of the most sophisticated criminal enterprises in modern American law enforcement history. The investigation's success served as a testament to the dedication of law enforcement professionals and the importance of federal cooperation in addressing complex criminal organizations that operate across state boundaries and threaten the privacy and security of American families.